Hello
Hi.
and welcome to the Animated Music Video Show, the show where we analyze some of the best animated music videos.
Our names are Eleanor and Giovanni, and we are stop motion animators who also animate music videos. Today we're going to have a chat about Tame Impala, It Feels Like We Only Go Backwards. This music video was made by the amazing Becky and Joe, who are really well known for their puppet series, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, but they've also made lots of cool stop motion stuff as well. And so this music video was made with plasticine, and we really love plasticine because we're stop motion animators. And this music video is particularly interesting because it's done in a slightly different way than claymation is usually done, which is that it's made from more than 1,000 different collages made of plasticine. So they take a piece of paper and they essentially make an illustration on the paper out of plasticine. And this has some real benefits because you can reuse the frames again and again, and you can also alter them in repeats, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So what do you think about that?
I think that is amazing because the idea of using the clay in an alternated way, which is not like the traditional claymation method, it creates something which is the texture and the movement and the variation as well, which is something that you said that we'll talk a bit later, which is how they could create a sequence and then that same sequence they could touch a bit the clay and photograph again that amount of frames, and it will just look completely different, and it will create the feeling of evolution through the entire music video, which is something I really love from them.
Yeah, and one of our favorite things about this music video is the structure, because it's got this really clever way of reusing these frames, like we already said, and of using loops, but still creating something that continues to evolve. And so this structure is essentially based on loops and masks. So
yeah, I think the structure is something that got my attention the first time I watched the video, because the way how the structure functions with each part of the song is just amazing. From the chorus, for example, we can see clearly that there's a specific pattern, which is something I just want you to tell your opinion about it.
Sure. So we first started talking about this music video a few years ago because we're both stop motion animators, and we were having a discussion about how they created this effect. And stop motion animators often watch things like this and they presume a lot more things are stop motion than they actually are, because we love this craft and we just think, how would they do that in stop motion? Because doing this 100% in claymation would be really difficult. Don't you think?
Yes, I think it's very true what you say about sometimes stop motion animators we think that everything is moving a lot, and we forget a bit of some of the trickery that is used for some of the best directors and
the things
and
you can
animators.
do in post.
Exactly, yeah. I think the trickery is basically all these resources and the mixture with digital media and softwares with the textures and the sequences that you get from the stop motion animation.
And so essentially what they've done in this video is they've made these different loops that are only about a second long each, and that they use in the choruses, but then they're framed with these masks that are these faces in profile, and the faces will move backwards while these other objects are moving forwards. And by creating these loops but also overlaying the masks, it creates this illusion that makes it seem like there's a lot more animation than there actually is.
Yeah.
Because I think to a lot of people saying more than 1,000 frames sounds like a lot, but it isn't actually as many as there really could be.
True.
Yeah.
And I think also how clever it is to use that technique, but also connect the technique with the feeling and with the topic of the song. So I think that is one of the brilliant things I can see in this video, which is something that I really like.
Yeah, because we're not 100% sure whether they've drawn the masks in something like After Effects or whether they've actually made faces out of clay and then used those to create the masks. Because the way they've drawn them, it has that kind of clay-like shape.
Yeah,
and so it still tricks the eye.
Yeah, I think that is one of the keys of that trick, because I think no matter if the masks were made in After Effects or if they were made with clay,
Yeah.
I think they preserve the shape of the clay, which is this irregular pattern.
Yeah.
So that's something that blends with the entire media, which is everything made out of clay. Yeah.
And if you want to see what we're talking about, what you should do is watch the video frame by frame, because you'll start to notice that these different loops of the face have exactly the same frames with different patterns.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Something else I wanted to add is the color palette, which is quite restricted in the video by the use of clay. But there's some moments where the clay mix with white or with other colors and create like more colors, and that is very interesting. But also how they plan the amount of color that will appear in that part of the song is very clever, because sometimes we think in such a way where we don't plan in terms of color, but color is really important in the way we segment parts of a song. And we can say, well, the chorus will be the color, the main color will be black with few other colors, and then every time that chorus repeats, you will see that pattern of color, and that creates a sense of order in the song and connection and repetition, and that's very important.
Because this is exactly what they did. In the chorus, there's this loop that happens, and it's this black background with these colored dots, and they're all moving forward. And if you watch the video carefully, you'll start to realize that this is the loop that reappears the most. And where it reappears is at the beginning of a chorus. So there's a point in the middle of the song where the chorus actually loops and the dots will reappear. But it reappears at the beginning of just about every chorus. And it's also composited in some interesting ways, so you don't notice that it's the same loop. For example, there's a shot that is in one of the verses where there are these tunnels that we're moving through, like a maze with walls to the side. And as we move forward, you can see the patterns through windows. And when it gets to the chorus, you can see this dot pattern, and the doors open, and there's a face composited singing "It Feels," and it just signals the beginning of the chorus.
Yeah.
And it's just these little tricks that you need to use when you're making these kinds of videos to make it seem like more than just a big random collection of cool graphics. You need to have some form of direction.
Yeah, so consider basically not just the animation part, but the compositing part, which is super important to make everything bigger and more with a better structure.
Yeah, and think about direction as well. Because in this video, in the choruses, the direction is always the faces moving backwards, and most of the loops are moving forward. But in the verses, the animation moves in all directions, so it creates this very definite difference between them, and things that are kind of in line with the song as well.
Yeah, that's so cool, because
allowing more development in the verse, which is how it works in the song too.
The structure is not limited by color or by animation or by the characters who will be in the screen, but also the direction where things are moving, which is also something that creates a lot of reinforce of each part of the song. Yeah.
And it's something that gives these simple, clear visual cues. So I don't think that there's only one way to do this, but there's lots of different ways you can make the visual cue of structure.
Absolutely, yes. Well, to wrap up, we think this video is very clever, the way they use the textures, the colors, and the way they structure the entire video with the sequences is very interesting, very well connected with the song, and
we anticipate that a lot of people who watch this show will will end up being people who either make their own music videos or who might want to make their own music videos in the future. And this kind of video is an excellent example of how you can create something that is amazing, really beautiful, but has some cool techniques that are used to make the animation a little bit simpler and a little bit less overwhelming, because you don't necessarily need to do complicated animation in every single frame to make a good music video.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we hope you like this first episode of how animated music videos work, where we reveal some of the tricks or just talk about how good they are. And if you like this content, please share with your friends. Please leave us a comment, like, and subscribe. And see you in the next episode.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.